Hello. Let me check and make sure everybody is hearing me. And I know the audio is a little low. I'm away from the microphone. All right. How you guys doing? There we go. We got the camera. Happy New Year. I'm excited. I'm finally back here live after a couple of weeks, and a lot has been going on for me. A lot of crazy stuff, fun stuff, and really excited about all of that. But let's make sure we're going live. We are live. We're doing some Friday reviews. I really want to make this a habit. We'll see if I can, because my priority is always my boot camp students, and so that's where I got to spend the bulk of my time. But I would love to be in here chatting with you guys. So let me make sure I'm here. Just give me a quick note that you can hear me, you can see me, and let's check YouTube and make sure that we are live there as well. And then we are going to jump right in and start taking a look. If you haven't posted your art station, it's a little too late, but by all means try. And then we will go from there. Let me make sure we are going live at... It doesn't like to do that, does it? Alright, so I got to do multiple directions. R Kingsline, YouTube. Yep. Yep. Lots of stuff. There we go. And we are live, not doing the 12 Days of Realism, as it says. I swear I'll get that together. All right, let's take a look. I'm going to take a quick peek over here and see. And I've got a couple of people. All right, let me refresh the page. And then I got some of my artists over at Artist Awake that have thrown the mic in. So we're going to look over there. You can see me over here. This is the guys I'm going to be looking for. So let's find the studio. This here, what you're seeing, this is all the Artist Awake. So these are actually my students. And then over here, let's just make sure that page is refreshed. And all right, everything's kind of closed down. In fact, I'll start up my marmoset scene in case we got somebody we need to talk the face with. Okay, and then let's get ourselves to business. All right, great. There we go. I see it all. Can see in here. Oh, Alexander, it is live. Charlie George, it says Friday reviews. Is today Friday? I hope it's Friday. Robert, how are you? Thanks for the comment on Insta. Super appreciate that. And let's get ourselves to business. So the key thing that I want to remind everybody, it's Friday review. Let's try to make this a habit, or at least one day a week I want to be in here giving back to you guys. Again, I'm not sure I'll be able to do it because my priority is my bootcamp students, all right? But I'm going to do my best. Now, the biggest thing, and the thing that I tell all my students and everybody that I encounter who wants to learn more, is you got to remember that mastery is not magic, it's process. That's it. Every magician, great and or small, knows that the key is process. You have to do X so they don't see you do Y. When we become really good at something, that all happens naturally. You're just over here watching and you don't even realize that the artist had set themselves up for success a certain way, right? I remember watching my mentor Al Gurry draw. And I remember looking at it and I'm like, how the hell does this guy construct something? How out of thin air, right? How can he draw so effortlessly? And I started to look at the little steps that he did. And I noticed that in the first 5 seconds, if he was drawing a back, let's say, right? You can imagine there's a back, or we can do some Photoshop in here. If you can imagine a back and you're looking at the scapula, he would... Can I just do a Google? Yeah. Male back. Yeah, totally. All right. So he's looking at an image like this. Not like this, but like this. And he's over there drawing it, and I notice in the first couple of seconds, he does this little tiny, it's lighter than this. He does this line, right? You see this line right in here? So he does this, and he does this kind of little placement markers. And, you know, before that, I was very focused on, like, I'm going to just trace this, and I'm going to try to, and if you've ever traced these things, and you know that you pay hyper attention to all the little bells and whistles, all the small little things when we're focused on tracing. You know, we become hyper aware of things. And then we say, hey, well, you know, I'm Egon Schiele. You know, that's why it looks like crap, and it's because I'm Egon Schiele, and, you know, I'm mispronouncing his last name. And, you know, look, it's art. I am an artiste, and that is why my drawing sucks. And it's not true. The reason my drawing sucks is because my process sucks, right? Egon, if this works, fantastic. All right? I'm not here to judge whether or not your work is going to be worthy of a museum. I personally believe museums are the biggest con job out there. All right? You can pay to get into museums. You pay to get into one museum. I owned a gallery for a little while. Very disillusioning for an artist to own a gallery. Con job. I'll leave it at that. What I'm here to do is say, if you want to improve your skills and have control over it, you've got to understand that mastery is not magic, it's process. So when Al Gurry would draw, he wasn't following contours and bumps and things like that. What he was doing is he was making the form, the underlining structure, right? And then he would go in and he would put the infrastructure on top of that. And he knew, okay, a chromium process, and he'd get these little doohickeys in, and he knew what this was, the different parts of the deltoid and how those things are moving, right? He knew all of that stuff, and so that's what was on his mind as he was doing it. But underneath it all, barely visible, was this little tiny line that he drew. And seeing that really changed everything about my approach. Everything. Because I realized that seeing was a form of construction. And I've talked about this a bit at length. You know, for example, I don't know if I have that Facebook post anymore. Oh my God. I just wrote this email and sent this out to everybody, and it was all about how one of the big things that we struggle with is blindness. Now, blindness is a fact of life for an artist. You're always not aware of something. And being an artist is all about learning how to see. So we're always developing our sight. And on my substance designer course with Arvin Villapando, there's a post that we made. I think it's an ad that the team did. And on there's this guy that says, I can do this all in Blender and I can teach myself. And I write back to him, fantastic. Good luck with that. And he writes back kind of like a little snarkily, and he writes back and he says, it's not luck, it's skill. Right? And then one of my friends, Tayon, got in there and he's like, dude, you got some work to do on your skill. And then this guy descends back. He's like, you got some work to do with your skill. Yeah. And all of this. And then I left the post here, right? I just left it right there so that this guy would eventually see. Because, you know, for me, we're all blind. And if you're going to go around being a blowhard and talking about this and that, all that, you know, well, you're not really being true and honest to the journey. You have, and then this is my thinking on it. You have become comfortable with your blindness. You know, if you ever think your work is good enough or the bomb, you just got comfortable with your blindness. That's fine. Maybe even you've confused blindness with actual sight. You think what you cannot see is actually the truth. But being an artist is this constant process of learning what I don't actually know. You're always discovering more stuff. I mean, over here I'm working on this face. Did I load? Oh, it didn't load. It's going to take a moment to load this. I'm working on this face, you know. It's kind of based off Jean-Claude Van Damme, but not really, because I'm focused on process right now, and I'll probably get back to likeness later. And it's always this constant kind of, you know, oh, oh, this is so awesome. I'll tell my wife, oh man, it's so good. I did so great. The students are going to love it. And then I wake up the next morning and I'm like, did I do it right? And I see exactly what I got wrong. You got to learn how to become comfortable with wrong, so to speak. And if you're walking around like this Yahoo who's posting on my Substance, I can do it in Blender and I can teach myself. Well, fuck, have a great time with that. All right. I wish you well on your way. Get the hell off my Facebook. All right. I ain't got no time for your stupidity, because you're going to be, and I've done it myself. I've been that idiot. You're going to be years slogging through that stupidity, which at the end of the day is an ego trip. The artists I know that I respect, that I admire, that have produced amazing work, usually tend to be humble, because they know what a grind it is. Here I am working on this guy and trying to figure out all these different things. And wait, it's probably a little bit too dark for you guys. Let's see if we can increase the skylight. It'll take it off mood a little bit. But, there's a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of problems hanging out with this guy. Where's the other lights? Dun, 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 dun. There, that's my big light right there. And then let's get a nice light in the front. Okay. So getting in here, there's all these nuances, right? Like, look at how specular this is as we zoom in. And then look at how crappy the eyebrows are. And then notice how much you can actually see the fiber mesh quality of this fur, right? There's always problems. The question that we've got to deal with as production artists and as artists is, what are the problems that we need to solve? That's kind of the principal conversation that I have, especially when I do crits, right? It's, what are the problems I need to solve? Because there's always problems. So you accept that. Okay? That's one of the reasons why I hate it when people come to me and they're like, tell me what's wrong. Fucking everything is wrong. Okay? I don't need to see your work right now. We're done. If that's the only question you got for me, I'll tell you right now, everything's wrong. Happy? Because everything's always wrong. There's always some level, there's always some movement, and, depending on what stage of blindness we're at, we'll see different things. The key to getting better is targeting your focus. Okay, that's why the boot camp for me is like crazy important, right? If you head over here, you see Game Art Institute, right? The primary thing we do is the boot camp, and the courses are over here, and there's all that stuff and whatnot. But if you're, what did I just do? If you're going to the site, the first thing we see is this, and it's because this is the thing that enables me to help people change their mind and go through the grind to get to that next kind of stage. Because ultimately, becoming a better artist is about learning to see. Learning to see is about confronting your blindness. Confronting your blindness has a lot to do with being in conflict with yourself in a positive way so that you can grow. Not a blowhard, I don't do that crap in Blender. Why are you writing? I don't know. Being in a positive relationship with yourself and all the things that you need to fix. I remember, I probably tell this story way too much, and it might just be me and the pessimist in me, but I remember when I used to work at TGI Fridays. I was a waiter at and I had flair. You ever see Office Space, right? I had flair. I did not have a lot of flair. I hated and hate flair. It's like, I hate it. It's just not something that goes well with my personality. But there I am. In fact, you know what? I should probably put my headphones on. Okay, good. They're not set. So I worked in Philadelphia, Center City. I think it's Center City. I might be getting it confused. But it was downtown, and it was right by the fountain on the way to downtown. And I used to train. I've been a teacher for a long time. And I used to train people, and I would tell people, look, on the night shift. I would tell people, new people on the night shift, I'd say, look, your night is going to go down in flames tonight. There's no question that it's going to go down in flames. And at some point, you're going to hate yourself, your customers, the company, the job, the universe. It's just going to happen tonight. The question is when. And how are you going to go down in flames? That's it. You're going down in flames. If you were working on a Friday night in Philadelphia and in this particular restaurant, your night was going to suck at some point. The question was, what were you going to do about it? That was it, right? And so I like to think about that every now and then when I talk to Art and I think about myself and my growth. And it's like, it always is, you can always look at it through that lens of it sucks, because it's always going to have some element of that. That's just the truth. The real thing that we have control over is how we handle it and what we do about it. What's our relationship with it? And when you realize that every night it's going to suck, every Friday night is going to just be like the worst Friday night possible. Once you realize that, you can start to have fun with it. You can be like, oh, that's that customer. Oh, that's great. Yeah, we saw somebody just like that last week. Okay, great. I bet you I know exactly what they're going to do next. They're going to have me come back to their table 15 times for water, for iced tea, for that little bit of ketchup, for that. And then you get to figure out and strategize ways to screw with people, right? Because you already know they're going to stiff you. You already know it's going to be a horrible night. So you just get to have a little fun within the system, okay? We'll just leave it at that. I don't wait tables anymore. I'm not going to be serving you at a table, so you don't ever have to deal with Ryan as a server anymore. Those days are done. Let's get in to look at the work. And as we look in the work, remember, you always have the lens of it's always going to go down in flames. But what you have control over is, what your focus is and how you're going to handle this, right? So for me, I used those Friday nights as training. How can I anticipate the screw ups? How can I get faster and more efficient? And so I use them as like training drills, basically, instead of having somebody yell at me in a boot camp. I had my customers boss me around. And then we went from there. All right. Let's get in. I hope that was some lovely advice for you as we move forward. Happy Friday, Andrew, Alexander. Wishing you could afford ZBrush. ZBrush Core, man. It's like 100 and something bucks. I know it's a chunk of money, but it's power. All right. Let's take a look. I've got my guys here, and then I want to take a look over here at my Artist Awake guys. Okay, so I'll start with the Artist Awake guys, because these my people. Robert and Danny, great. Lawrence and yeah, that's probably going to be a little better, Robert, if I look right here at your art station. Okay, hold on one second. I'm going to get my audio working so I can hear myself a little bit. Make sure my audio is progressing as it should be. Okay, good. All right. Robert. Same Robert? Yes. Okay, and okay, good. All right, so Robert, the question when we look at this is you always want to have some kind of framework for how you're thinking about things. Okay, so I'm going to give you kind of a generalized feedback on this, and then I'm going to start to walk you through a little bit deeper. And the reason why I'm going to do it this particular way is I also want to teach you how to critique yourself. When you learn how to critique yourself, things are always better. Now, the first generalized approach is you go for the weakness. Okay, and the weaknesses for people are always the same. Look at your fingers. And as I'm saying, look at your fingers, you're probably like, yeah, I know, but I didn't work on the fingers yet. Okay, that doesn't matter. Nobody cares. It's work you're presenting, and in this particular case, look at the fingers. Fingers aren't done. Okay, but when we now then start to say, well, where are they in this conversation? We come over and we look and we're like, well, look, I mean, there's some pretty damn developed anatomy you got going on here. So why is the torso here and the fingers here? And it's because this is just where you are on the stage, where this is, you focus on the torso, you focus on the arms. These are like the obvious mechanical elements that people master eventually. And that becomes part of the system. So people are aware, you know. And in order for you to start to reach the next level, you need to stop being that guy that just focuses on the arms and the torsos. You need to be that guy that, fixates on a fingernail. Because that's how you're going to grow. It's like New Year's Day, right? I got an email from somebody about the boot camp, and they're like, can you guarantee me a job? And it really pissed me off, I would love to guarantee you a job. I'd love to guarantee that my work doesn't suck too, right? But this industry, you just got to work, and you got to produce work, and that work needs to find a home or a recruiter or somebody that responds to it and responds to who you are. And that's it. There's no guarantees, right? So I was like, I wrote back, I was kind of a little pissed. I wasn't in my best mood. And because I was on New Year's Day, I spent like 10 hours on this marmoset grind, trying to make this thing look, cooler. And it's the smallest little details that make that happen. It's like this little bit of the specular on this guy in this particular scene. In fact, because this isn't fully rendered for this light setup, we should probably just go back to the original. It's always little details, okay? And that's the kind of thing that you need to start to get focused on now. Now, that's one generalized way that we look at this. The other way we look at this, and the way that I like to kind of keep in mind about this, is you got to be thinking about things in terms of a process or systems. And you got to hit that system, right? So the way I think about this, and I'll probably hit this exact same critique for a couple other people, is what's the goal? Okay, what's the goal of the work? Now, if you don't have a goal for the work, then your job is to get a goal for the work. Okay. Now, your goal could be that you're trying to explore and you're trying to deep dive and you're trying to discover all the problems, right? I'm doing that right now. But if you're interested in a job, then you need to change your mindset a little bit and you need to focus on that. Because if you're interested in a job, your work is going to be seen by recruiters. And recruiters aren't artists. They're not qualified to judge you as an artist. You're much more qualified than them, and that might be a little rude to say, but I don't intend it to be rude. There's plenty of recruiters who are qualified, but the vast majority of them that's not how I would say that job works. Their job is about finding matches. And there's the biggest thing that they're qualified to do is just see if you're a match for your team. Personality, skill set, all of that stuff. But in terms of your art, the way you think about it, it's apples and oranges. So, are we focused on a job? Where do we want to work? Okay, you have a concept here. So it's kind of a Blizzard type style environment. So that means that now we need to be evaluating this in terms of a Blizzard aesthetic or high res or something along those lines, right? And on top of that, we need to have some beacons, something out there that's saying, hey, this is how it gets done. So here I'm going to give you a beacon right now. Matthew Gilmeister. Was it Gilmeister or was it Rodriguez? No, it's Gilmeister. All right, Matthew came in, and this is 3 years ago, the work that he did. And let's look at the screen. This is what he did 3 years ago before he came into my boot camp. Really good, solid work. He had this the technical skills. He knew the software. He knew all that stuff, but he was having a hard time getting a job. So he came into the boot camp, and in the boot camp, we have a particular thing that we focus on. Finishing the damn thing, right? Getting down into the details. And look at how much work he produced on this. And it was this, along with the combination of his past work, that got him a job. Let's see if his LinkedIn is there and if he's updated his LinkedIn. They got him a job at High Res Studios. Pretty sweet deal, right? Ranging from, now he's on AAA, and he's doing a whole bunch of cool stuff. And he got that job in August. Congrats, Matthew. I've already said that to Matthew. But the point that's relevant to you is Matthew Gilmeister is a beacon. See, one of the things that I've noticed with artists, myself included, is we get so addicted to the journey that we just want to dive in and we become explorers, right? But explorers don't have career jobs. There's these totally different mindsets, right? I mean, I experience this on a deep, visceral level myself. I'm an explorer. That's why I teach, because I'm committed to the journey. But I'm aware that if my students are only explorers, they're missing what the job actually requires. You must be able to transfer your desire to dive deep and explore something to your capacity to actually produce work that makes a difference in some recruiter's life, enough to where they look at this and like, yeah, you're a candidate. We want to bring you on. We want to invest in you, right? Because in a job, it's tens of thousands of dollars and time, right? I've made bad hiring decisions. I'm the worst HR person. My wife is the best, but I'm the worst. And when I bring people on, it's usually a disaster. And as somebody who runs a business, when you bring on somebody that is not a fit, like that employee is just like, oh shit, I gotta go look for, or it sucks that it doesn't work out, but it's a massive costly affair for the business. So they're going to be looking at this like, you're a risk factor to them. And your job is to mitigate that risk factor. How do you mitigate that risk factor? You got to understand what they're looking for. That's the key thing. And in order for you to know what they're looking for, you need to not be over here in Egon Schiele land of I'm an artist, but you need to be, and that probably was not some Facebook safe stuff there. Oof. Please do not delete my Facebook account, guys. But let's get back here. So what do they need to see, Robert? I'll pause a second and see. What do they need to see? That's the question that's in front of you. And let me come over here, and I'm probably not going to be able to get to your response. Let me see if I can get it on my Facebook. Yes, good. Okay. Henry, you are guilty of exploring, Henry. I know this. I've seen this. Let's see. Zebras Core, Paul. All right. So tell me what you think people need. Write it down, get it out. But here's the deal. You've got the sculpt. You need to finish your high resolution. You need to then immediately go into your low resolution, and I'm totally fine if you decimate and Z-remesh. And I say that, and people are like, oh, no, that's not possible. You can't Z-remesh. That's cheating. This whole freaking thing is cheating. You're working on a computer. For the love of God, Michelangelo did this stuff with his bare freaking hands out of 20-foot marble slabs. And you're looking at this computer. Oh, it's cheating. You're freaking cheating the whole way around from a certain lens. So what is up with us that we're sitting here going, oh, it's cheating? When listen, your father ever say to you, hey, I walked uphill to school through the snow 3 miles both ways, right? That's what I feel like sometimes when people say, oh, it's cheating. Get over it, right? This is not hard stuff. In topology UVs, that's not hard stuff. It's important stuff. It's not hard stuff. Hard stuff is the high resolution sculpt, getting those fingers so they don't look like sausage links, and going in and in Substance Painter, making this thing look authentic and adding appropriate depth, right? Like I was talking to somebody who's aspiring to the boot camp, and they're like, and we looked at their work, and they're like, well, it's a little much and all of that, And I'm like, that's cool, totally get that. The thing that needs to happen with your work is it all's kind of at a certain level. You need to kind of take it to the next level. And he writes back and he says, what next level? I thought these things were done. And I'm like, that's the problem right there. So easy. The problem is you think it's done. You're blind. You got comfortable to it, right? Because somehow or another, we just shut our brains off. And we think, I'm going to throw some noise on substance, and I'm going to throw a little bit of this on, and like, that's going to be good enough. No, nothing is good enough. Stop being good enough. Stop living your life half-ass. It's good enough. What the hell is that? I mean, if it's good enough, then go be a programmer where you're guaranteed employment because they have absolute demand for that job. And then you can be good enough with your fucking life. But if you want to be an artist and you want to get a job, good enough is sacrilege. It's not even, like, what the hell are you saying good enough? It's not good enough. It's never good enough. Get over it. Get used to it. And get your ass back to work and make it better. Better, I can handle. Good enough? That drives me nuts, man. I cannot handle that. Always has a next level. I've been learning and training. I do oil paint. I do draw. I sculpt in clay. I sculpt in ZBrush. I've written scripts. I've done all this stuff. Every single point, there's always been better. Always. And there always will be. That's the beauty of it. So if we're looking here, Robert, get yourself into Substance Painter ASAP. There's nothing else that needs to happen except for fixing the sausage link fingers. You need to get this thing into Substance Painter. And I say it like that because so many people stop here at the digital sculpt. And it's like the bane of my existence right now because I used to teach digital sculpting. I helped build ZBrush, right? Like I put the rake brush in. I built the slash brushes, right? Like there's a million things I did inside of ZBrush. And that was such a big part of my life. But if you want to be working in the industry, you really got to expand outside of ZBrush. ZBrush is now the box, which is so strange to say because it was built to basically break the box. But it became so powerful and so pervasive that it now is the box. And you must break out of it. So you got to get this thing into Substance. And that was a long time talking on your work, Robert. It looks really great. But you're about 1/3 of the way done through the pipeline. Does that make sense? All right, my friend. Let me know if you got any other questions. Just leave them in here. This looks like a ZBrush poly paint, and if it is, get your butt out of ZBrush. And if you're looking at this and you're like, I don't want to learn Substance, I can't help you. You got to learn Substance. You can learn Quixel if you want. But you got to learn Substance. All right, Danny. And I'm looking here real quick. Eric. I'm looking at the comments here real quick, and I see this beautiful comment. Eric is saying, yeah, but Michelangelo didn't have to retopologize. Have you seen this? Because if Michelangelo had to retopologize, Leonardo would have developed this Z-Wrap. I haven't played with it yet. I just seen it and seen a couple of people kind of demonstrate it. Pretty awesome stuff. Characterland AG gets me motivated. Good. Glad to hear. Christian Roman. Don't be sorry, be better. You sound like my father. Father. All right. What about the rest of the pieces being modeled? Robert asks. Yeah, you got to work in that, but the question becomes for you, what's modeled, what's textured? So here's what I would do, because you had a very great stage here, and you've got enough of the essential pieces. I would start moving this into Substance and seeing what you can do in Substance and start developing the pipeline. Then I'd come back for the rest of the pieces. All right. Danny, looking awesome. Let's take a quick look at the screen itself. And, uh-oh, my wife is calling. I hope I'm not in trouble. That was 20 minutes ago, so if I'm in trouble, I am past those days. All right. So, Danny, let's take a look at your... I don't think I want to take a look at your page. Okay. So this, it's a beast to critique because you have so much right, but not right enough. All right, so let's talk. I'm going to talk about what's working, and then we'll go from there. Okay. So this is working. I really enjoy this, and this fabric is looking really good, and it's really solid. Okay. The skin, you've got the tone, you've got the chromatic variation, and you've got some decent lighting on that. That's really nice. Okay. The biggest problem that I'm encountering is in the metal, I think. The metal in the hair. So the hair is very much like this. Now, if you're using fiber mesh, what you want to do is you want to come in and you use this brush, Groom Spike. And you use this in little bits of ways. Like I'm building a, this is for the face class. We're talking about a couple of things here. So let me just lengthen this. I'm going to reduce the fibers a little bit. Okay. And let's change the color. Come on. Uh-oh. Computer's going slow. All right, there we go. Now I'm just going to accept this real quick because I don't really care about it too much. And I got this blinding light behind me. All right, so if you come in and you use some of the standard groom brushes, let's use... Hossein uses this one. He uses Groom Lengthen. And he just kind of... He'll use it to pull things around a little bit, which I think is quite cool. Okay, but when you are working with this, you know, the big issue that we have, let's just BPR this. The big issue that we have for the most part is that, you know, everything's just going down the same direction. Okay, so the trick to this, and I wonder if I can set that light a little bit. Is it going to respond to it? Okay, the trick is you come in with this brush here, Groom Spike, and you kind of, with a very light hand, you pick these tendrils. And I think I should have had a lot more segments in this. And if you do this right, you can break it up enough to where it starts to go in multiple directions. You can't really see it in that other area, but you can see it up in this area where it starts to just kind of, you get these little, you see how the hair is coming this way, and then it's coming that way, and then it's going this way, right? So that helps break things up, I think, and creates a little bit more interest in it. So you got to do that to break this up a little bit. And then the other thing that we got to do is we got to get into this metal. Okay, and this metal is looking a little bit rubbery, just a little bit. And I'm not entirely sure exactly what's doing that, because you do have some strong specular in there. Okay, but where is it getting that? That is the dilemma. Yeah, and it might be... Okay, yeah, this is all going to come down to your specular. So your specular is to, you see the really tight, or not tight, but broad specular, the broad specular, the broad specular. And then the other thing I would do is adjust the lighting a little bit so that, you know, we're not getting such a brightness there. And watch how this is coming up. But you've got to get in there and you've got to, in substance, add multiple layers to your specularity and really work that. Now, if you're rendering this inside of Marmoset, then you should also experiment with the specular cavity and make sure that you're using a primary specular and a secondary specular. You know, that's going to be really an important aspect. So if you're doing that here, the big thing that makes something realistic is making sure, and I know this is not metal, but you got to make sure that you're working with, I got the wrong settings up. You got to make sure that you're working with your specular intensity for your primary reflection and then your secondary reflection, and really work that as well. You know, it's really essential for you to be able to kind of spread things out. If you don't have a secondary intensity, you know, everything has to flap into one, and it just starts to have this kind of CG quality. So what we've got to do is get in and adjust the specularity a little bit, but you may be able to get away with this inside of Marmoset. So what I'd love you to do is, one, adjust the beard and the hair, and then the other thing is if you're in Marmoset, don't change anything except for your specular maps. And remember that your maps they're just at their maps. So go into Photoshop and do some corrections inside of Photoshop and bring your curvature in, your curvature in to get really some work in here. The other thing that's not kind of happening is we're not seeing any kind of dirt, you know, accumulating in here, and the dirt creating its own set of specularity. Right now everything is like just fairly uniform, and you've got this down, but I need some dirt in these areas, and then that'll kind of help as well. Okay, and then not all of this should have this level of specularity. You should try to get a little glint on just the edge in there, because otherwise this is starting to look like it's round, and in looking round like this, it starts to look cheap. It starts to look a little bit less produced, if that makes sense. Okay. All right, Danny, you got your work cut out for you, because it's now pretty close to the last mile. And the biggest thing that's going to make a difference is if you get in there and you really work the metal. Probably going to come down to, in Marmoset, tweaking the maps and trying to really make that kind of float. I don't recommend that you just go substance to Marmoset and leave it. I suggest inside of Marmoset really work those maps. Cool. All right. Thanks, Danny. Hope you had an awesome holiday, and I hope you got out into the water. I haven't been out into the water since I talked to you about it. All right. Ciao. Excuse me. Lawrence. What am I looking at, Lawrence? A little bit more work. All right, Lawrence. So we need to evaluate this in terms of the high poly, I think. Or the low poly. You didn't, and I'm not following where you are on that. But I'll do my best. Christian, how are you? Alexander. Okay, great. Cool. All right, so this is actually looking really good. But is those VCRs? Yeah. All right. So it's a little low res, Lawrence, but here's what I think you need to pay attention to. The bevel. The bevel there is quite broad, and it's the same here, and it's the same there, and if I look at my VCR, and I could be wrong because I might be misreading this, but not my VCR, sorry, I don't have a VCR anymore. I have VCR tapes, but the DVD, I don't know, but check your bevel there, because that seems quite wide. And it's the same bevel here, so I'm a little worried that that's just something you're just doing consistently. But I would, and the same bevel there. So I would pay a little bit more attention to the bevel and how the form moves over. That'll make a big difference. Make sure you actually render an image out at a higher res, because when we evaluate the high resolution, to see all this staccato, that stuff screws it up. What we really need to evaluate the high resolution is we need some specular in there. Your construction is fine, but construction is almost irrelevant these days. The most important thing is how this thing works in terms of its bevel. That's going to be kind of the key component here. Here's a start on the high. Yeah, so you're starting on the high poly. And good. And then, of course, we got all that other work you did. Okay, great. So looking at this, get me a higher res image and come in and pay attention to the bevel a little bit more. I think it's a little phoned in. And then this is not right. There's a funkiness right there. So correct that. That's a small thing, but the people who are polygonal modelers notice that kind of stuff. Cool. All right, Lawrence. And let's go back into Artist Awake. Okay, we got Robert. And let's get all of these. Somehow or another I missed Powell. Ante, how are you? Okay, Lawrence and Robert. All right, great. Pavel, Ante, and let's close out of that. Okay. All right, technical artist at Farm 51. So, what do we want, and what's the focus? Give me some tips. I would be grateful. Okay. So what's the focus? All right. There's a couple of different things that we can talk about when we do this. Let's see if inside of there. All right. So when we're looking at these works, right, the question that we've got to start to evaluate, there's several ways that we look at this. Number one, you're in a territory that's still really new to people. And so the primary thing that I like to do with people that are focused in substance is, just like I was talking earlier, you need to find guides. Okay, you have an opportunity in front of you, and I'm going to show you James Raitosa. Okay, James Raitosa, wonderful artist. Okay, he put together, I don't know, like 50 to 100 of these materials. Okay. He got hired at, I think, High Res or no, it wasn't High Res, it was somewhere else. And then now he's at 343. He didn't go to college. He skipped college. They hired him before he even had a chance to go to college. So if you're focused on a career, my advice for you is to find people who have done this, start to model what you do and what you produce after them, and as long as it kind of still makes you happy. So when we're looking here at your work, as a technical artist, you've done a great first step. You've done a lot of steps. I mean, you can polygonally model. It's good, right? There's a little bit of wonkiness on the edges. It's not entirely crystal clear and clean, but it's well within parameters. So you've got polygonal modeling. You've come in and then started to work on these kind of trim sheet ideas, these kinds of things. That's really positive. And now you're in here and you're doing materials. And your materials are about 8 months ago. Okay, so now when we come in here and we start to evaluate the materials, that's what we got to start to understand. What do people respond to? What is it that's really going to make a difference, right? And this is this interesting area right now because substance is so new. And you can get by with just knowing substance, right? But when we get in here and we start to explore this and you start to think about Joshua Lynch and some of the other substance artists that are out there, you need to go deep dive into what makes a material a material. I'm looking here and it says concrete broken ground material right here, and you say, and it says a speed study done during free weekend. Okay, so good, great, but don't do speed, don't do studies, right? The primary thing you need to do now is get a mission. What is your mission? What is it that where's all of this going? Because if you get a mission around this, you're going to do a lot more than just free weekends, right? And that's what you're going to ultimately have to do, because we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So over 8 months, you have 6 materials. Okay. James Raitosa had 50, 60. I mean, he had a ton. And the key thing for you, and this is the way I would evaluate and talk to you, is you're in this job right now. Now the question is, how do you grow yourself, both technically and marketably? Right? That's a big part that people miss, and it's an odd part for artists, because artists, they think marketing, they think sales. Sales sucks, but it's not. They're totally different. Marketing, any good artist worth their salt knows that marketing is important because it helps get your message out. And if you're an artist, you're usually driven by some message, right? I do a lot of marketing in my company, and I do it because I believe in the people I work with, and I believe in my students, and I believe in making a difference. And so I have to market. I have to find ways to communicate. So you have to find ways, Pavel, of how you're going to communicate, right? But you got to have a mission. What's your mission here? Is it just to be another technical artist? I like this idea of technical artist in a growing studio, right? But we got to start to find a story of like who you are. Okay, so my story, Ryan, is digital artist, traditional digital artist. So I was a traditional sculptor that learned and mastered the digital tools and got involved and helped build the digital tools themselves, right? It's kind of my story. So what's Pavel's story? And now when we're looking at this, I'm looking at your growth, and it's like, hey, if we look right here at these guys, at this is beautiful, right? Beautiful. Okay, fantastic stuff. You need 20 more of these. 20 more of these with generators that are going to give people the different controls and you do stuff like that, and you serve and you provide value to your community, then your whole career changes. Okay, the principal thing you've got to think about, number one, get your mission. Okay, then you've got to think about this next thing, right? This is what I teach people in my business class. You have to find a way to be valuable. I'll go down a slight tangent here. A while ago, I did a video, and I a little aggressively titled it "Is ZBrush Dead?" And got a lot of hate. I got a lot of hate, which is really kind of fun. Actually, it was really nice. So I always worry about hate. I always worry because I'm a people pleaser, right? So I always worry about that. And then I was like, finally, I don't care about this hate. It's kind of nice, actually, because it makes it clear. It's like if you're hating on this, then you're simply not thinking. You just saw the title, and and then in my sense, piss off. I'm trying to make a difference, and the thing that's important here is adding value to people's life. So in this video, I was like, hey, if you want a career, stop focusing on ZBrush. I love ZBrush. I helped develop ZBrush, right? But stop focusing entirely on that, because now algorithmic is out there. There's these other tools out there, and they're competitive, whatever, right? I might play that drama up a little bit to get people kind of talking and having a conversation about it, right? That's conflict does that. But ZBrush is the box. This is new. This is powerful, right? And this is something that the industry needs. There's a lot of energy around this. And that's the kind of thing that you want to start to do, right? And I don't mean be opportunistic, right? Just if you want to go out there and make a difference in your career, you need to find the match between your career and what the industry is actually looking for and what they want. Okay, it makes no difference for you to be in your own cave, just doing this own little thing that you kind of like, nobody cares about, or you can't translate into a career or any of that stuff. You got to figure out where your rubber hits their road. If you figure out where their rubber hits your road, then you start, your rubber is your mission. Their road is their needs, and it's like substance. It's all these different things. That's how you build a career. Right? And there's this great book by Seth Godin called This Is Marketing. And in this book, Seth talked about, I know I'm rambling a lot, but that's, hey, it's Friday. So in this book, he talks about how if you get paid to do what you love, you're a fortunate amateur. And I love that because I was like, huh, yeah. Because any job that's worth doing well, you're not going to like at some points. You're going to have to do some things you're not necessarily comfortable with. So you need to get past the whole doing what I love thing, right? Even though today I just sent an email out on that, but it's nuanced, all right? So you've got to get past just being this fortunate amateur, and you got to realize that there is an emotional labor to being a professional. In fact, that's what makes somebody a professional, is that they do the emotional labor to get the results that make a difference. The question I have for you here is what is the work that you need to do to further your career, right? What's the emotional labor? What's the work that you need to do? So as I'm sitting here, right, I'm not going to go in and, I mean, we can go in and we can talk about the materialness, like if we're looking at this, you know, this is really beautiful the way this is all working, right? And there's some beautiful transitions. You could probably get in these areas right here. You could probably get a little bit more granular with it, but this is really nice, right? And this shows how you've really started to master the blending. As we start to go into this area, this is a little bit weaker, right? You see the striations and the blending between things isn't as powerful, isn't as strong as you've got now as you come in and, let's say, go into this one. This is looking much stronger. You know, there's still some work that you got to do in the reflectivity of the ice. It's a little too, it's not quite there in some of these areas, but it's looking quite powerful. So that's all. But the thing is we need to stop worrying about what's right and wrong at this point. You need to get your mission, get your rubber, get your road, and you need to go. So 50 materials, create a pack, start creating tutorials, start really giving back to the industry. If you were to teach my boot campers a little bit about substance design or how to create an ice, or ice, maybe not so much. If you were to teach them how to create 5 different kinds of rocks, something simple like that, right? 3 different kinds of leather for their armor. You teach them how to do padded armor, all inside a substance. That's making a difference in somebody else's life, giving value. That'll make a difference in your life. That's the thing I love about my business and my job is it's, you know, there's always some selling aspect to business, but the primary thing for me is give value to people. You give value to people, you make a difference. That's how it all works. All right, so that's what you got to do, my friend. Okay, let's take a look at Ante. It's been a while. So how are we? Ante, what? There we go. I think Ante, is this your boot camp? Yeah, that's your boot camp character. It's over a year ago. So I just needed to refresh myself. See how much you've been doing. Title. Charlie, what do you mean title? Sylvia, thank you. Herman Carlson. Happy New Year, Christian. Christian landed a job. Where are you working, Christian? Unfortunately, it says see more, and I can't open it up. Hey, Noah. Pavel, great. Glad you like that. Yeah. Let's rock 2019. All right, Ante. So this is where you went after the boot camp. Cool. And then I want to move into this. Sweet. And this. All right, let's review this. Deal? Okay, your sculpt is beautiful. And the amount of detail, your presentation here, I am freaking loving this. This is fantastic. Really beautiful. I would not call the title of this project Test Girl. I would say give it something, some power, some meaning. So Test Girls, it discounts it. Okay. So your sculpt is beautiful. God, look at this, man. If we come back, let's load in your past one. This is what you did a year ago. we gotta honor the journey here. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. And then I look at this now. Oh wow, look at that. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Clavicles, nice. Okay. All right. Now, let's see. Is there any scan? Because that's what I'm getting. Test flow for getting a scan from images, cleaning the scan. Okay, good. So that's coming from scan. And then the rest of the model is done in ZBrush in the head. Okay, good. All right. So the sculpt's coming from the scan, and what we need to evaluate is the jacket. Okay, so first I'll look at the grayscale, and I'm not sold on this pattern. I think it comes down to the pattern. See your fold in this direction, see how this balloons out and then it's creeping in here, right? If this was actually being worn, this would be very uncomfortable in this area as it kind of shrink wraps in on that and then has this big old piece. So there's something here in the pattern where this is not draping down, but instead is shrink wrapping to the body, whereas this appears to be draping down. So the arm is draping down. There's volume in that arm, but there's not volume in the back. And my thinking is you probably need to dial that in. That's the word I was looking for. Took a moment. Let's take a look at the pattern. Okay, arm. And is these the sleeves? Because that might be why we're having that odd ballooning. And that's the collar. I just got to familiarize myself with what you got going on here. Okay, that's the collar on the front plate. And then it's the back. All right. Yeah, so I may be wrong, but I think you just need to add some more room, you know, here towards the back to make room for the latissimus dorsi and all that area, because it's just shrinking in there too much. Or you got to change something with the arm because the volume discrepancy is a little bit too much for me. So check your pattern, make sure that that's clear. In terms of your sculpt, you look within range. But if we come in here and we look at the final one, what we want to do is we want to look for any kind of triggers that tell us that this is digitally sculpted or there's any problems. And overall, I see some triggers when I look at the high res. Like these are all no-goes. You know, we don't want that. You don't want these little loosey-poosey things. You don't want that loosey-poosey line there. Sometimes you can get away with that stuff with the texture, but it's a little loosey-poosey. Now, the other thing is you got to really get in there and pay attention to your scale. So your scale is looking okay, but I think having a big-ass thing like that right there and these big old folds, these actually probably, I feel like they should be like 25 to 10% of that size, you know, much smaller. Much smaller, not such big pieces. But the key thing is you got to have some reference, you know. And so I'd say overall scale is a little bit of an issue. You either need to double down and add more, and since you've digitally sculpted this, it's quite possible that scale is one of the big issues you're going to face. You know, you're just going to have to get in there and figure that scale out. You know, it's harder. That's one of the reasons why we do Substance Designer for this, is for the scale and the tileability. You can just, you know, you just take your UV tile down or up, as the case may be. Okay, beyond that, you're looking good. So there's a little bit of issue in terms of the scale of the texture and the pattern. I'm not sold on. It looks really uncomfortable from the back. It looks great from the front and from the 3/4. The hat's looking good. The texture here is great, except I'm not really buying the specular. You know, I think the specular really needs some attention. Like you have specular here. It's okay. But I would probably spend another 3 hours on the specular to kind of make some areas a little bit more matte. And then for me, every problem I have is in this image. This is good to go. The other one's good to go. This image with this, and this kind of hard edge and this massive sleeve in there. So either get rid of this image or fix this image. Cool? Great work, man. So much growth. All right. That's all my boot campers and people. Oh, let's say get ourselves into this one. Okay. And I will go back to the oldest. Lorenzo, Corey, Pavel I already did, and Jimmy. All right, guys. You know where to find me, GameArtInstitute.com. I'm coming in here and just doing crits right now to give back, and these things keep me sharp. Also gives you guys a chance to see what we kind of do at the Game Art Institute, if it's even important to you. Yeah, Jimmy, it's a touch late, but I'll try to do this next Friday. I've already kind of gone over my limit. I got to get in and start working on the face tutorials for some people. All right, Lorenzo. The question we always have, Lorenzo, is what's the goal? Okay. You want to work for DreamWorks. You want to work at Blizzard. Okay, then the other thing is what's your guides? Who are the people? Not the people that you're necessarily getting actual mentorship from, but the people who you can start to model your career after, right? We don't want to be doing this from scratch and just like, willy-nilly. Reverse engineer success. That's pretty much the best way to do it. You reverse engineer success. So you want to look at people who have had success, and you want to evaluate how they did that. So, for example, Leticia Gillett, right? Did a podcast with her, and she's amazing. She's in Overwatch. And what did she do? What was her process? What was the work that she produced to get her there? That's the work that you need to do, and you need to think through, and you need to start to work towards. All right, so you're in good shape here. But if we come in and look at, say, this one, for example, hand painting, cool. You need to get into substance. Okay, hand painting is going to be some value in that, but you got to get in there and do something with substance, in my opinion. I think Shane Olson might disagree with me, but I'm interested in future-proofing people, and substance is the big way right now. All right, now the other thing is that some of your forms are not particularly. There's some lack of specificity, and you're also missing some elements of anatomy. So, for example, down here, the cheek, the nose up here, and then the lips, which kind of exist. This is a straight line, but then it comes in, and then this is a round form. So, and then we come in here, and this is a little wonky, and this line in here is a little wonky. Okay, so what we need is to get a little bit cleaner with the form, a little bit more precise as well. And then you can start to consider, like just some general canons of proportions, like noses and bottoms of the cheeks. That stuff can kind of line up to make things a little bit better. But if you come in and you look at, say, my friend Michael DeFeo, my cats. Let's do his peoples. Oh, it's a nice website he's got. Despicable Me. You want to start to look at these guys and see if you can kind of divine what they're doing that kind of works. So notice how in his work, it's not, there it is. There's soft, and then there's edges. And that's really like, it's a sea of soft for her, and then a few edges here and there. That's kind of the principal essence of this character. If you come in and look at Gru, some hard edges, and a sea of soft, right? So if we come back and having done that and looked at this, we're getting a little bit too much noise. If there's an edge, there's a wonky edge, and then a wonky edge in there. So start to think about ways that you can kind of create a more globalized form in there. And then also this little weak plane right in there that I don't really like. How can you start to get these a little bit more globalized, a little bit more simplified, which really helps establish a little bit more structure? That's kind of the element that we're talking about there. Now, when we come in here, we look at this piece. This is looking pretty solid, okay? But when we evaluate it in terms of the shape language, this is generic, this is generic, this is generic, and this is generic as well. So get in there and start to explore some of that shape language. What happens if you come in and you put the chest high and then dip in? That tucks in, that lifts up, right? That little bit makes a difference, right? That's character. And that's the kind of thing that you need to start to evaluate. You need to start thinking about this from, okay? Also with this line here, is there any benefit to moving it forward or not? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe this gets tilted a little bit so it's not so straight. Maybe, maybe not. But get in there and start to add a little bit. Let's say if we give him a little more belly. And then, careful of this part. This stuff always confuses me. But that's within range. It's really a matter of getting a little bit more interesting shape in there. And seeing if you can kind of get a little bit more drama to the shape itself to make that a little bit more interesting. In terms of the face, I think you're doing some pretty good work there. But you've got some weak planes. Like this is a little bit of a weak plane. Maybe as you go in and you try to put anatomy in there, and you got to go back to the basics and really just simplify the whole thing. Really keep it nice, clean, and simple. And then it needs some harder edges, really hard edges in there, and add some more specular to your piece. But don't be afraid to put stylized work is always down to these planes. Cool? All right, Lorenzo, good luck. Corey, what's the focus? 3D environment artist at Pocket Gems. All right, so how do we grow? Now, you got to get in with the new stuff. Looks like you are. This looks really good. I'm liking this. Now, this is a little, this causes me problems. I liked the other image. I came in here, and what is the problem that I see? I see this is either low res or it's a little chewy right in there. This whole area, and then it's stamped in. Okay, and then these lines are quite big, and then this is not clean, and that's really wonky as well. Those areas I think you should be more careful with, and you should get a little bit more craft in there. And so the edges of that or the fracturing of that are going to be much closer to the edge themselves. Not so much of it kind of beat up. And then you got to be very careful of the depth effect that you've kind of added in there. From these views, it actually works really well. You don't notice that problem too much. You just notice it from a 3/4. So the other thing that you've got to do to this is you got to start to add some gradients. So red on red. Top to bottom, put some gradients. Always have gradients. It's going to be darker at the bottom, maybe lighter at the top. Okay, that kind of stuff that adds this naturalness. This, it's so easy for you to do that. Either in Photoshop or in Substance. So add your gradients. Okay, then the other thing that we've got to do is within the body. You see how you've got a very procedural level of thickness to the edge. That's a big problem because it just flags, it just flags procedural. So some of these areas need to be thicker. Some of them need to be thinner. You gotta get it's not just all worn away. Okay, that's going to be a really important thing to adjust. So that's what I would do there, Corey, is really get in there and start to work those edges with a little bit more specificity. How long ago is this? All right, so I'm going to leave this because I think the primary thing, if you want to kind of hit this next level, maybe start thinking about AAA and things like that. How long ago is that? 2 years ago. Is you need more of this. Okay, and the person that I'm going to give you to lead you is Melissa Mazzocco. She actually taught the boot camp at one point, and she was in the early version of it. This is the kind of stuff that helps get jobs. Follow her lead. All right, Corey? Thanks. Okay, Sylvia, what's the goal? Freelance 3D artist? Okay, so what does that mean, Sylvia? Start to define your brand and who you are. Don't leave it to other people, right? You got to pick your battles. What do you want to do? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do character? Okay, and this is 2 years ago, so let's find the most recent that we can. A month ago. All right. Okay, so form, you need to focus, as we saw with Mike DeFeo. You know, you got to get edges. Let's close that out. This is all very soft. I don't see any like edge, corner in there, and the edge of the lip. You know, so get edges and softs in there. This is good how you got soft in there. You just have no edges for me to kind of hang my hat on. Okay, the hair is phoned in. Look at the 1 shape, 2 shape, and then this is just kind of generally sculpted. You know, go in, put one slab of geometry, another slab of geometry, another slab of geometry. Put multiple slabs of geometry in there. Take that as far as you can. Spend a day, 2 days just on hair, making that work. All right, now the specularity of this is not really in line with the specularity of the face or the specularity over here. It's a little bit too mechanical. So you got to be a little mindful of that. And but otherwise, I think you're in fine shape in terms of the clothing. Lighting looks fun. Let's look here. Yeah, you definitely need, and this is, you're so close on that face, Sylvia. You just, you know, this is a weak form coming in like that. Try to give that muzzle of the mouth, not just this weakness coming up into this. Try to think about the mouth as this larger shape. Yeah, that's really nice. That's nice, but you need more geometry in there. Okay, your noise is looking good. Try not to phone in this stuff. Like I just phoned in what's happening in there. The more work you do to get to the next level there, the better. The bike looks pretty awesome. You know, no qualms with that. I'm sure that took some time. And then in terms of the texturing, you got to work on wrists. Don't phone those in. Spend some time on the wrist. You see that? That's a big problem right there. You need to get the geometry to come in, and then you get that little drop as the radius and the ulna start to take over the carpal bones, or start to move into the carpal bones. There you go. So you get the sweep down and sweep down. Right? This angle is what you need to really focus on. Get a beautiful angle in there. Okay. Small little things to deal with. Not everybody gets that stuff right. So, but otherwise I think you're in fine shape. You just got to get into your edges more. All right. Jimmy, how's it going, Jimmy? Z, I mean substance painter in that particular case, I think. Welcome, Corey. Yeah, I saw that in mobile games. The key to transitioning from mobile games, Corey, is detail. Niles did mobile games. Okay. And he did an early version of the boot camp too. Okay, and he did mobile games, and you can see, where is it? I think I've got the interview with him here. If you come in and you click the page, you can scroll down here. I've put it right here in the front because I thought I did. Where did I put it? Yeah. Come on. No. 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 All right. Well, I had it somewhere. I thought I put it in there. where I have this conversation with Niles, and we talk about this. But he was in mobile, and this model changed his career. You're one model away. I tell people all the time, you're one model away. It's just got to be a damn good model. That's the problem. It's also the opportunity. Okay. So if we're looking at your work over here, you, Corey, you were wanting to be in, let's go back to your work, Corey. I'm bouncing around a bit. There you go. If you want to switch from mobile to AAA or on from there, this is the path. You got to make these things sing much more. And you got to do 5 of them at a very high level. Cool. All right. Jimmy, senior character artist, SYBO Games. Okay. So look at that work. Awesome. Now, the question that you're facing, you've got some great work. You're in the normal process of, I can improve this, I can improve that. You might come on and you'd be like, hey, maybe Ryan gives me some anatomy tips or something of that nature. But the primary thing that I think about when I see somebody that's got this much wonderful work here is, what's the next thing in their life? Where do you go from here? How do you kind of reach this next level? Because you've got fantastic form. You've got great representation of, all the essential anatomical elements. Look at that cheek, that little dimple right in there. That's really great work that you've put together there. But the question is now, what's next for you, right? So if I come in and I look, let's say here's your LinkedIn. You've been in the industry 2 years, I think. Character modeler. Yeah, roughly 2 years, 3 years. No, education. Oh, you were at TrueMax. I taught there for a short period. I think like a couple weeks. I can't remember. So this is giving me a sense of where you are and what your focus is. Character model, character model, character model, character model. Okay, great. Hey, Tayon. Hey, Mohammed. Sylvia, absolutely. Jimmy. Okay, presentation is hard, Jimmy says. And you just missed me at TrueMax. Well, you got me now. All right. Presentation, I think you're doing fine. I think that you're doing a lot of good work here, and I don't see any kind of issues with this. So now the question becomes, at least from my perspective, is always like, okay, so I'm not really big on, hey, let's critique the work. Now I'm like, hey, what do we do with the career, right? That's kind of the big thing. So you're over here, you have this capacity, you can do this kind of work. What do you do that helps you start to get yourself noticed and get yourself out into these different areas? And one of the big things that kind of comes immediately to my mind is you got to have some kind of mission out there, right? And I was talking about that a little bit earlier. But for example, a big mission I've got for 2019 is realism, and just documenting the crap out of that, right? Like I did this 5 pattern eyelash method. It's the 5 fingers of death. And those little tips and tricks are the things that I'm kind of been documenting the crap out of right now. I shared just that one, but I've been documenting a lot of these. And realism's my mission. So we think about this, Jimmy, what's your mission for 2019? What do you want to do? Right? You've done film, you've done character modeling, you've done all of this stuff, but now you have to start to think beyond just the skill, and you got to think about the whole package of who Jimmy is. That's the next really important element that you're facing, because you've got the capacity. We're looking here at this. All of this is looking good. So you've got all the capacity that you need to make something happen. But now, how do we get to that next level where you're starting to kind of reach, a different crowd? Okay. My kids love this, by the way. So thanks. I'd say you got to find your mission. What is it that Jimmy's going to be focused on? And you got to start thinking about, this is one of the advices I gave I gave Jason and a couple of the people that were involved in some of these classes of mine. You got to start reaching out to other artists, like Irene Matar, right? I don't know if you know Irene. I did a podcast with her. Irene Weenie. Okay. You got to start reaching out and doing some versions of her work, saying like, hey, can I do, my version of your piece here? Something that she's doing as well. Or you start building this kind of work. Because if we think about it in terms of career, you can do the modeling. Now what about going into toy collectibles? All right, so maybe that's an avenue that you can start to explore to help kind of build things out. You look at guys like Rafael Grassetti, who's art director at Sony, and then he's also doing collectibles, and he's branching out into these different areas. It's a great way for you to go out there and get who you are in a bigger capacity out there with more things going on, and that kind of enriches what people think of you. Does that make sense, Jimmy? I'm looking here real quick. Jimmy, I'm more and more curious about marketing art and 3D concepting. Yeah. Get in and try toy collectibles. Okay, good. And you're doing that with Florian Sattingers. Good. Yeah, that's the key thing. So let's look at Florian. I don't know Florian right off the top. Satzinger. There we go. Perfect. This is exactly what you need to be doing. Guys like this is, they draw, they don't sculpt. So it's always a positive for them to have some 3D version. They probably sculpt. But not necessarily in ZBrush. So this is the next direction for you to go out and really start to see what you can do here, and then maybe start exploring the toy collectibles. The other thing that becomes really important, and I can't recommend this enough, is to teach. Really get out there and start to share stuff. Do stuff for free on YouTube and things like that, and just start to give back to your people, and that really helps raise your profile. My entire career is based on the fact that I gave back to people, back in the early days, everything I did at ZBrush and all of that good stuff. All right, let me see. And we go there. So I think I am missing a couple of people who have posted a little late. Let me know if you guys like these Friday things. I appreciate you guys taking the time out to be here. And remember, head over to Game Art Institute. Is it Game Art Institute? No, that was Adams. Head over to GameArtInstitute.com to learn more about what we do. The boot camp has about 5 seats left in it for January 20th. So make sure that you apply today. Start the conversation there. And I look forward to hearing from you guys. Have an amazing weekend. Spend it with the ones you love. Talk to you later. All right. Take care.